Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. I hope you had a nice week. So today, when is this war going to end? Is it going to end today? Is it going to end tomorrow? What the heck is going on? So we're going to cover a few things tonight. The war in Iran, of course. Donald Trump seems to be trying to declare a victory, but obviously that's not going to work. The UK government is trying to bring down the price of petrol and diesel at the pump, and a few other stories, including UBI. I will mention a UBI, which is getting a bit of traction at the moment. So I want to start off with, of course, the idea of boots on the ground. Remember, Donald Trump had said that there was no plan of putting boots on the ground, US boots on the ground, but it seems 5,000 Marines are heading for the Middle East. Now, the Middle East, is it to prop up bases in the Middle East, or is it about going into Iran?
Some breaking news coming out of the US regarding the ongoing situation in the Middle East. We're hearing from our colleagues at NBC that approximately 5,000 additional Marines and sailors are deploying to the area to support the war in Iran. This is according to 3 US officials speaking to NBC. The service members make up an amphibious ready group and Marine expeditionary unit known as ARG and MEU. Now, we're told that an MEU is notable because they are trained for crisis response, evacuations from dangerous areas, protecting embassies, etc. Also trained to be the first ones in on the ground to set up areas for other forces. CENTCOM, we're told, requested the additional forces because, and I quote, part of the plan for this war was to have Marines available to provide options.
Wait a minute. I thought Donald Trump declared victory. It's like, yeah, we've won. Now what we're going to do is send in 5,000 Marines. How is that a victory? Wasn't me that said it. I've heard Iraq might skip into this war. Iraq might skip into this war? Like, what? Okay. I don't know what the benefit to Iraq would be, unless Donald Trump is going to offer them land or something as a reward. Trump's using doublespeak to cover all bases. Yes, we won, but it's not over yet, but we're going to win more. That's it. You know, it's about continually winning. It's like we won the first stage. Now we're going to win the second stage and the third stage. We're going to keep winning until Christmas. We're going to keep winning until I decide to stop winning. That's what it is. Russian munitions have been sold and have been landed in Iran. The rumbling continued. Yes, so there have been stories coming out about how Iran has been relying on the Russians for not just for equipment, but also for intelligence. And that's one of the ways that they were able to hit American troops as well, or American bases, thanks to the Russians. Now, this is, of course, being rewarded by Donald Trump. He's decided to ease sanctions on Russian oil. Okay, so the Russians help Iran to attack the United States, and the United States responds by helping the Russians. Okay, so it must be wonderful if you're a soldier trying to defend something in the Middle East, because Donald Trump has decided, well, we're actually not going to deal with the threat posed to you. What we're going to do is reward the threat posed to you. This is one big feck up. It certainly is. New by KTEL, Donald Trump sings Tom Jones, War, 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 Melania. Yes. The most winniest war ever. And Donald Trump is the greatest war hero of all time, war general of all time. Oh, what a surprise. Trump helped Putin. Yeah, we were speaking about this before we came on the live stream, and I don't know, is it Putin has something on Donald Trump? It's possible. You know, it's not just videos, but maybe some other material. I don't know, does Vladimir Putin have access to unredacted Epstein files? Maybe that's the case. Portable rocket launchers for troops and missile parts, system parts. air and land defense equipment. That's probably what's going in there. They need to start doing something, because obviously a lot of equipment in the Middle East has been destroyed. And of course, US allies are now targets. The whole point of having these US bases in the Middle East was to protect countries like the UAE or Bahrain or Saudi Arabia or Oman. These countries were supposed to be protected by the fact that the US had bases there. So they would be guaranteed safety from Iran. Now they are actual targets of Iran. So Iran is not really attacking, and you can have a look at the data yourself. The attacks on Israel are pretty low for two reasons, I think. One is that nothing is really going to get through. But another reason, of course, is, well, why waste your ammunition on Israel when you can find softer targets in the Middle East? And Trump has taken equipment away from the Middle East, from the Arab nations, and given it to Israel. So he's been investing more in the defense of Israel than he has in the defense of allies in the Middle East. And these people are going to remember that, along with South Korea. So two very expensive pieces of equipment. I think there are only 4 of them, special radar systems. Two of them were destroyed recently. There's another one in South Korea to protect South Korea. Well, it's been moved from South Korea to the Middle East. So South Korea is now being punished for doing nothing. This thing just gets worse and worse. And I believe within 24 hours of the removal of that specialist equipment to defend South Korea, North Korea carried out a missile test. The Iranians were told the Gulf states that they'd stop being targets if the US leave their bases. Yes, and I think that's what we're going to see. If you say, look, we're not going to do anything, we're not going to have any business with the United States, Iran will say, okay, that's fine, in hope of securing safe Hormuz passage. Europeans look for a way to restart energy shipments as Iran's new supreme leader vows to keep Strait shut. So China and India have been able to get ships through the Strait of Hormuz because they have a good relationship with Iran. Okay, it seems maybe European countries are deciding, well, it's better to it's better to reach out to Iran to secure safe passage than to back the United States and Israel, which doesn't guarantee safe passage. Now, this could damage these countries in the long term because they're picking a side here, and obviously it's not even they're picking a side. They're saying, look, we're not picking a side, but we don't want to be shot at. So if we don't support the United States, then will you give us free passage, safe passage? And they'll probably say yes. So Italy and France, who have not got involved with Donald Trump's war, and it's looking more and more like the United States and Israel are being sidelined here. So if other countries jump on board this as well, it's not going to look very good for Donald Trump. It's not going to look very good for Israel and the United States, because they're saying, hey, this is blocked because of Iran. But if Iran will say, well, it's blocked because of you. Other countries are able to pass through. No, this is just them reaching out. There's no guarantee that this is actually going to happen. But it certainly looks bad for Donald Trump, because these are supposed to be allies of the United States. But they have their own issues to worry about. They have people in their countries, Italy and France here, who are concerned about the cost of living. And if the government doesn't do something about the cost of living, then they're going to be punished. There's no benefit to France and Italy's governments at the moment siding with the United States. There's no benefit to them whatsoever. So I think they're taking maybe a pragmatic approach to this. Look, we need to work with Iran. We need to secure passage of our ships. Our businesses are putting pressure on us. Our voters are putting pressure on us. We need to do something about this. And if we go along with Trump, well, we're going to suffer the consequences either way. They used to say, war, what's it good for? But that's not disputing. It helps Trump and Putin deepen and widen their love and rapport. Well said, Wee Scott's dog. Bill said, the The US have war-gamed with Iran for 47 years, and the Strait of Hormuz was always closed. Yet the Trump regime seems surprised this happened. Yes, it's surprised it happened. It's insane. You would imagine, okay, if we're going to go to war with Iran, what we need to do first of all is secure the strait, make sure that it's safe. But they didn't do that. So I think the problem here, and I mentioned this in a video that's probably dropping tomorrow, the problem is that Donald Trump has surrounded himself with idiots. He surrounded himself with people who agree with him. So when Donald Trump says, hey, let's go to war with Iran, normal people would say that's a stupid idea. But the people around Donald Trump are saying, yes, of course, that's a wonderful idea because you suggested it. It's a cult. It's a frigging cult of personality. And of course, no one will call out the dear leader. No one will contradict the dear leader because they'll lose their job. They'll be booted out. They'll become a persona non grata in the MAGA movement or in Donald Trump's sphere of influence. So these people will, of course, just say, yes, sir, great idea. Of course, you are the greatest leader America has ever had. So if you think going to war with Iran is a good idea, then obviously it's objectively a good idea. Trump administration is blind leading the blind. It is. It's the stupid leading the stupid because they're not... They kicked out anyone who had any competence. Like, look at the Secretary of State for War. He used to be on Fox News. He was hired by Trump. He was appointed by Trump because Trump liked the way he spoke. So I like that guy from Fox News. Let's make him the Secretary of State for Defense, or War as it is now. Calvin Land, thank you so much for that super chat. Calvin, it's your birthday. I remember you told me on Tuesday. So, everyone, get ready. Put your fingers in your ears because it's about to come. So, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Calvin Ladd. Happy birthday to you. Okay, now it's over. Many happy returns, Calvin Ladd, and thanks for that message. That's typical of how Trump picks his appointees. Yes, and the latest one to be the head of the Air Force or something related to the Air Force is Charlie Kirk's wife, ex-wife or whatever she is now, widow. What is it? Ex-wife? Charlie Kirk's widow. Because she has a lot of experience in the Air Force. No, because she's useful to Trump. And she's a sycophant. Max, I didn't hear that song. Yes, you did. Naughty. Well, that was pretty bad. Is that about me, or is that about my singing, or is it about the current situation in the Middle East? Longford for Sam. You're an evil man, Ray. I know he's an evil man. Singing, okay. Anyway, let's move on. What's the current situation? Well, it's not good.
With each day that goes by in this war, there's obviously all sorts of events and implications for the global economy and indeed the economy here in Europe. But let's just kind of give you an update. Past 24 hours, some of the big moments, big news events. 2 oil tankers set on fire just in the north of the...
Remember, this is something that could have been avoided, but Donald Trump decided, no, what we're going to do is we're going to go in, remove the Ayatollah, and then the regime will collapse, and then we can put in somebody that we like. It'd be a bit like Venezuela. You know, maybe they were hoping to actually kidnap the guy. I don't know. But it's probably the Israelis said, no, you're not going to be able to kidnap that. We'll just eliminate him. So the Americans went, okay. Well, Donald Trump went, okay. And I honestly believe that Trump believed that all this would happen in a few days. So probably remove the leader, the regime would collapse, the people would rise up, and then he would be able to select his new leader for Iran, somebody that he would like. maybe an Iranian or maybe a non-Iranian, but he would decide who is going to be the next leader of the country. And that's probably what he thought. He'd probably get it all done in a few days. He'd be over there in Tehran and he'd be treated as some sort of conquering hero. That's probably, they were probably already preparing a uniform for Trump or something like that. Okay, where are we going to put our new Trump towers in Tehran? Okay, they were probably planning all of these things. There was more planning put into what comes after than actually what went into removing the regime. And once again, Donald Trump has surrounded himself with sycophants, surrounded himself with idiots, people who had no competence. They were selected based on loyalty to Trump, not on their ability to understand the Middle East or to understand the regime in Iran. Nothing like that.
Persian Gulf, one of them, a ship attacked in Jebel Ali, just outside of Dubai. The airports in Kuwait struck by drones, also airport attacks in Bahrain as well. And then also, perhaps even more concerning than everything else, just in the south of Oman, Salalah, an oil facility there attacked. And this is an area, as you can see, it's far outside of the Strait of Hormuz, which of course is the key issue.
Which means that it flew across Oman, like mainland Oman, which is really concerning, because where are the air defenses in Oman to take down these drones? They probably hit it because they thought there was a chance. And they were right. Which once again begs the question, where are the air defenses for Oman, and where are the air defenses from the United States for Oman?
Here, not being able to get ships in and out of the Strait of Hormuz, and the new supreme leader of Iran saying that will remain closed. And all of that together is enough to concern people in the oil market, part of which is why the International Energy Agency has done this stage. It's
always wondering where it starts off. Like, where this, they've already a 450 on the left. So, it's like going to be, okay, this is going to be a big one.
Unprecedented intervention, pumping an extra 400 million barrels of oil out into the market, or at least they plan to in the coming months. And a lot of that, this is bigger, you can see that, bigger than Ukraine in 2022, bigger than Libya, bigger than Hurricane Katrina, bigger than the first Gulf War, giving you a sense of just how concerned they are about what's happening right now. A lot of that, the biggest share, comes from America. So 172 million barrels coming from the US. But here's something interesting and perhaps concerning. If you look into the size of America's stockpiles, here's what you see. Okay, so this is America's strategic petroleum reserve, and this is basically all of this oil that America has stashed away in various reservoirs around the US. And going back to the 1990s, so I mentioned the Gulf War. Look, that was the point in the Gulf War where lots of oil was released from the US. Hurricane Katrina over there. You've got Libya in 2011, and the biggest of all of the releases of oil came in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. But here's what's striking. Just look at where that line is now. Look at it compared with previous years. It is close to a historic low, this strategic petroleum reserve. In other words, the biggest crisis in the oil market in recent history, which is what the International Energy Agency say this is, has happened at the point when the US has the least resources to be able to throw at it from its reserve. That's pretty.
So that's probably something else that was advised to Trump, but he ignored it. Either he didn't get the memo, or he did get the memo, but he ignored the memo.
Striking, isn't it? And all of which has kind of contributed to what's going on with the oil price, which has been a complete roller coaster in the past few days. There it is at the end of last week. You can see the roller coaster started early this week.
See, and oil prices are meant to be quite stable. They're not meant to go up and down like this, which makes it more difficult for people to trade in them.
It went up to about almost $120 a barrel. Donald Trump stepped in and said, no, the war is complete, and that kind of pushed it down a little bit. But then soon afterwards, it started to rise. And you can see, even after the IEA released all of that oil into the market, or said they were going to, actually, oil prices went up rather than down. And partly that's just because of all of this chaos that's still happening in the Persian Gulf even now. All of this raises the question, what are the implications going to be for the wider economy? You know that oil prices, when they go up, they push up petrol prices, which in turn pushes up inflation. And here's a pretty interesting, it's just an early estimate of how much higher oil prices and gas prices might push up inflation in various countries around the world. What the number's showing you here is how much on top of the existing forecast. So the UK was forecast to have about 2% inflation. If it goes up by another 1 percentage point, then you're talking about close to 3%, raising the question, what does the Bank of England do there?
The Bank of England will, of course, increase interest rates to bring down the rate of inflation, because that's all the Bank of England does. The Bank of England doesn't care about why the inflation is high. They just care about bringing it down. So they will, of course, increase interest rates, or there was a plan to cut interest rates. Well, they decide not to cut interest rates. It's likely, I'm not an economist, I don't have a crystal ball, but as we've seen from the past, what did the Bank of England do? They don't care why inflation is high. They just say we need to bring it down to 2%. And how do they achieve that? By increasing interest rates. So people's mortgages and the cost of debt is going to go up. So if people's mortgages go up, landlords' mortgages go up, they're going to pass this cost on to renters, or the cost is going to be passed on to consumers. So this is the reality of it. The Bank of England should take into account why inflation is up, because we've heard it before. When the inflation was at 11% under the Tories, they were like, oh, we can't pay people higher wages because that will push up inflation, although that was not the reason why inflation was high. So once again, the Bank of England is likely to increase interest rates, or not freeze. They were supposed to freeze them. They'll probably not freeze them. They'll probably increase them. And this will, of course, harm the economy at a time when growth is extremely weak.
But the other striking thing looking at this is just the variance. So Canada, for instance, it's relatively kind of small in terms of how much oil it imports from overseas. And so as a result, the inflation impact isn't so much. Whereas over here in China, you've got 12% of its imports are oil, and therefore just look at how high inflation would go above the forecasts in China. Similar story, by the way, if you look at just the potential impact on GDP, just overall economic growth. And the big picture here is, well, basically for pretty much every economy around the world, this is negative. I mean, slight statement of the obvious there, but nonetheless, this is not a good thing when it comes to overall economic activity. The UK, weaker growth somewhat this year. This is all for this year, these numbers, and they are the numbers versus the forecast. So the forecast at the moment, kind of 1.5% or so percent, that's cut. But the US cut even more. And that then raises the question, what does Donald Trump do in response to this? The US is much...
What does Donald Trump do in respect to this? Blame immigrants. Yeah, that's what he's going to do. Double down on this war. That's what he's going to do. Is he going to actually help people? Of course not, because it's not in his business. It's not in his ideology to help people. He may claim to help people. He'll say, oh, what we'll do is we'll write checks. He was supposed to write checks before. People were supposed to receive checks of $5,000. They didn't come because it was a lie.
Much more dependent on oil than many other economies. So what does Donald Trump do in response? He doesn't want to see a downturn in the US, but that might well happen if this continues. Meanwhile, in the Gulf, what we're looking at here are the flight paths of various different planes going around the Gulf. This was the picture just before this conflict broke out. And keep an eye on the flights going over kind of Iraq, going over Iran. And now I'm just going to kind of show you what happened in the following days. So we're just moving from day to day. Look at these flight paths. And look at how basically they've just stopped. You're not seeing any flight paths around this region at all. And you're seeing far fewer going into Dubai and going into this area in the UAE. And you get a real sense of that if you look just at the level of flights into and out of the United Arab Emirates, so Dubai, Abu Dhabi and so on, after those attacks begin. Just look at the extraordinary fall. It has gone from being, Dubai for instance, which is by far the biggest airport here, has gone from being the biggest airport in the world to falling to near zero and barely recovering. And that's really the final question to kind of bear in mind.
And this is a huge problem for Dubai because they have sold themselves as a safe place in the Middle East. But it's no longer a safe place in the Middle East now. It's going to be very difficult for them to win back. I think they will eventually, but their economy is going to suffer greatly as a result because they have hundreds of thousands of workers in Dubai, the slave labor. Okay, the people who actually do the work, not the expats or immigrants or the people or the influencers, the people who are living there because of tax reasons. The people who actually do the work, there'll be no jobs for them. And a lot of them come from from countries in Asia. So they will likely have to go back home. And this is going to be extremely damaging for the UAE economy. But of course, the fundamental problem for them is they're attractive because they're safe, but they're not safe at the moment. And it's going to be difficult for them to rebuild that trust with the public. Gareth, thank you so much for that super chat. So we're in the West. Keep nukes to stop hostile foreign powers from bombing us, but think that bombing Iran will lessen the desire to require nukes. No, and there are actually, and that's very interesting point that you raise here. Germany is talking about getting nukes because it sees, well, if you have nukes, you're less likely to be attacked. There are countries in Europe who would never consider having nukes or considering having nukes, really considering it. And I think this is going to really change the outlook of the world very, very quickly. North Korea was very clever. They decided we're going to close our borders. This is many years ago, and we're going to get our hands on nukes as soon as possible, and they're safe now. I don't know how long the regime is going to last. It's been propped up by China, of course, but they guaranteed their safety. Iran didn't guarantee its safety because it didn't have nukes. The message to take from this is, if you have nukes, you're not going to be attacked. They say Japan is a month away from having nukes. Yeah, Japan as well. Yeah. The new Japanese prime minister, very much to the right, she wants Japan to have nukes as well. So everyone wants to have them, which is a bit of a problem, as you can imagine. I don't even need to tell you why that's a problem. And while this is all going on, Trump will continue to work towards cancelling the midterms and figuring out how new ways to rig the elections. I don't know if he can do that, because I think what he's going to try and do is disenfranchise as many people as possible. I don't think he's going to be able to cancel the midterms, because this is something run by the states. I think he's going to see, because it's not really going to stop him doing what he's doing if he loses the Senate and the House. I think they may try and impeach him, but I don't think that's actually going to benefit them. I don't think he's going to get impeached. They tried it before and it didn't really work out very well. So I think Trump is willing to let the House and the Senate go for the midterms. I think he's going to try and disenfranchise people. The Republicans will try and disenfranchise people, but Trump doesn't really care about the Republican Party. I think it's more about defending himself. So I think he probably thinks, and he's probably surrounding himself with people who say, oh, well, everyone loves you, so it's the Republican Party that people hate, not you. So he probably thinks he'll be okay for the midterms, because he's still endorsing candidates. And if the candidate loses, he's like disowning them. Okay. So, and we've seen this in some special elections, what they call in the US special elections, which we call by-elections. There was a Democrat who won by 94% or something like that. 94 to 4%. It was like 400 votes for the Republican. Somebody had said it was maybe his extended family came out to vote for him. But these special elections, the Republicans are being slaughtered. So it's going to be interesting in the midterm. I don't think Trump is going to be able to stop the midterms, but I think he'll try and disenfranchise as many people as possible. And the Republican Party will pull out all the stops to try and stop people from going out and voting. And this is why it's so important that people do go out and vote. That you make sure that your voice is heard. And I know there are some Americans on the stream tonight, and I don't even need to tell them what's going on. They know it better than I do about what Trump is trying to do and how the Republicans have been trying to disenfranchise people from voting. Sir Larry, great to see you on the stream tonight. It's getting spicy rocks refined down. Sorry, it's getting those spicy rocks right down. That's the problem. Why is that a problem? Nukes are pretty easy to make if you can get the fissile material. It takes a bit longer if you do it without irradiating yourself. Yeah. It turns out a system based on politicians being honourable falls when there are people that aren't. And that's a really interesting point, Andy. It's and it's a question that was actually we were talking about it before the live stream on Discord about how is it better for politicians on our side to be honest when it means calling out the likes of Nigel Farage. And I used to say yes, but if you're honest, you get nowhere. If you're honest, the media don't want to hear from you. If you're dishonest, you seem to get by. I'm not saying that's the way it should be. I'm not saying that's the way to go, but Farage has demonstrated time and time again that dishonesty works. You need centrifuges and reactors, a bit of infrastructure. You can also buy them from, you can buy them from another country, I think, or you can allow them to host them in your country. Anyway, guys, let's move on. Away from Trump, more or less, for now. I want to move on to this story, which is quite interesting. What happened when the Chancellor met petrol retailers in Downing Street? So the Chancellor of the Exchequer met with some retailers selling petrol and diesel in Downing Street, and allegedly it got a bit heated.
That's representatives from petrol and fuel companies in to meet the Chancellor in a meeting that almost didn't happen as planned. Have petrol retailers been price gouging, Mr Miliband? So as well as the energy sec, the Chancellor's also at this meeting. It's been called to basically make sure that retailers aren't ripping off customers by whacking up fuel and petrol prices amid oil prices going up because of the conflict in Iran.
We are determined.
Okay, before we continue, isn't it interesting that as soon as there's some sort of crisis, within 24 hours, petrol stations prices go up immediately, and also quite dramatically. But as soon as the crisis is over, it takes a long time for the prices to come back down again. Now, they will say, well, we need to increase the price because of the market, because we're buying it in bulk, and we buy it in advance. And so, they will say, I'm not fully convinced by this. I'm not fully convinced by the idea that it's justified that the price goes up immediately as soon as a war breaks out or whatever. But as soon as the war is over or whatever, the issue is resolved, the price comes down slightly. Come down slightly over a longer period of time. It's not so dramatic. The drop is not as dramatic as the increase for some reason. It's called price gouging, Max. Yes. I was trying to be diplomatic. Anyway, let's move on to this.
As a government, to do everything we can to keep those prices as low as possible.
Now, there's very little the government can do unless it's about taking away taxes. So there are certain taxes on fuel. The government could take away those taxes, which would bring down the price. But I think a problem for the government is that if they did, well, the retailers would just keep the price the same and maximize their profits. And there's nothing to stop them from doing that. So while Farage and others will say, oh, you need to get rid of the levy. Yeah, but the problem is if you get rid of the levy, the retailers may not reduce their prices. There's no incentive for them to reduce their prices. There's an incentive to increase their prices. That's what they do. They increase their prices to maximize profit. They have somewhat of a closed market in a sense, a captured market where you can't really go anywhere else. You can't, unless you have an electric car. There's not much you can really do. You need to buy the fuel. Whoops, sorry.
Tolerate unfair practices either here or anywhere else.
We are determined as a government to do everything we can to keep those prices as low as possible.
We won't tolerate unfair practices either here or anywhere else in the industry.
So the TV cameras were only able to...
So I just heard before the live stream, thanks to Chatty Rat for telling me this, but allegedly, this is true, allegedly, it's not illegal that if you're driving on the street and you see a price saying like, say, £1.90, and you drive into the forecourt and the pump is like £2, that's not actually illegal. It's like, I thought that was illegal because it's false advertising, but it's treating it's about offering people, treating people, or convincing people to come in isn't illegal. So you can put up something that's false but get away with it, which I don't think it happens very often, but it's but there is price gouging going on, of course.
The film, that top bit of the meeting, and it might get a little bit tense in there, given some of the accusations that have been flying around from government in recent days.
Whether it is petrol at the pumps or heating oil, there is no excuse for any business to use this as an opportunity to rip off customers.
It's comments like that that have gone down really badly with some petrol retailers. One of the associations that's at the meeting actually pulled out, said they weren't going to come because of the language that the government has been using. They said it was inflammatory and may have been leading to some petrol station staff being abused by motorists. Now,
look, I don't believe for a second that people were being abused because the Chancellor of the Exchequer said that people were being ripped off. I don't believe. I think people were angry because they saw the price go up. They're like, hey, yesterday it was one price, now it's almost double. How is this possible? So, and there's no justification for taking out anyone's frustrations on staff, because the staff are not the ones who set the price. It's the franchise, or it's the distributor, the retailer themselves. So it's like taking it out on staff. The staff are probably on minimum wage, so they're not deciding the price. So I have no time for anyone taking out their frustrations on staff, be it in the NHS, in the hospital. I despise people taking out their frustrations on members of staff. Those people are not in the decision-making seat. Somebody else is. Petrol stations should live within their means. No more. I wasn't sure where that was going for a moment, Gareth. Thanks, Gareth. Petrol stations should live within their means. No more avocado toast and Netflix for them chaps. It's all heads up Trump's. It's all heads up. Trump will kidnap the US economy. Well said.
They eventually changed their mind, but only after the government gave them some assurances about the terms of this gathering.
With prices where they are, we are concerned obviously with motorists, and it is expensive, obviously, household budgets, etc, and we're doing all we can.
Now, petrol prices have been going up in the last week or so, but that's to be expected given what's happening with the price of oil. Retailers deny that the price rises are excessive. Others, though, have spotted that the price at the pump varies quite a lot between forecourts across the country, leading some to speculate that maybe some petrol stations are putting their prices up too much.
Exactly. Of course they are. For example, I remember some years ago where I rented a car in Ireland and I was taking it back to the airport, and I noticed the price at the petrol station, not inside the airport, just next to the airport. The price was about 20% higher than anywhere else. So, that's obvious price gouging, and it's not even during a period when there's some sort of crisis. They just know that if you're returning a car, you need to return it full. So hey, let's screw some people over because they have to refill their car, and they can't go anywhere else because it's far. The next one is far away. These people are in the business of price gouging. Okay, they see an opportunity, they increase the price, and then when the situation is resolved, they eventually lower their prices a little bit because there's a chance to make a lot of money, and that's the reality.
So the petrol and fuel retailers have just left. They said it was a constructive meeting, so maybe tensions have cooled a little bit. I think what all this does show, though, is the political danger for the government of prices rising again in the year when they wanted to essentially show evidence that the country was turning a corner, that things were getting better, that costs were coming down.
And I think this is a real big problem for the Labour government, because what Labour did was they ran on this idea, what we're going to do is bring down the cost of living. We're going to deal with the cost of living. The Tories did not. Nationalisation is one way of dealing with this, yes, although I don't think they're going to go down that road. Very much not going down that road. But this is a massive problem for Labour because they will have to sell people the idea that they're better off now that Labour are in power, or they're better off than when the Tories were in power. And the next election is an infinity away in political terms, but Labour really need to improve the situation for ordinary people. But if people see the situation getting worse and worse, they're going to vote for someone else. They're going to either vote for the Greens or they're going to vote for Reform UK. Because the other part, those two parties don't actually have to sell something. They just have to say, we're not Labour. Has your life got better under Labour? People will say, well, no. Doesn't matter what the policies were. Doesn't matter how charismatic or uncharismatic Keir Starmer is, or whoever the leader is. This is a fundamental thing that people don't seem to get. If the situation does not improve for ordinary people, they're going to vote them out. Doesn't matter how much you demonize the other parties. Doesn't matter what Nigel Farage says or does. If he presents himself as someone who's going to not be the Labour Party, who'll improve your life for you, then people are going to vote for that. They're going to give him a chance. Doesn't matter how much demonization is directed at Farage or Zach Polanski, they will be in a stronger position because they're presenting themselves as the anti-status quo. And that's exactly how Donald Trump won in 2024. He was telling the public, look, is your life better off under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? And a lot of people said, no, my life was not better. Inflation is an issue. They had no idea how bad it was or how good it was, but they came out in droves to vote for Donald Trump. Won a massive vote because people were not happy with the current situation. And people are not going to be happy with the situation in 2028, it's highly likely, because Donald Trump is not doing anything to help ordinary people. And Labour need to learn from that as well. Otherwise, they're going to be going the way of Joe Biden. Max already sang happy birthday, Sir Larry. GB Energy will bring thousands of jobs to Aberdeen, and they got 14. GB Energy was trumpeted as this massive government body that will bring down the price of energy and create lots of jobs, but it seems to be just an investment vehicle. Have you ever spoke to Kyle Kalinske? Would love to see you on his show with Kyle to talk about UK. I'd love to speak. I'm a huge fan of Kyle Kalinske. I've been following Secular Talk for a decade. I was following it before I started this YouTube channel. I was a huge fan of, and he's been around for like 20 years. So I think he started out talking just about religion. That's why it's called Secular Talk. But of course, he moved into politics, and I really like his stuff because it's. I haven't been seeing anything recently, but I like. He seems more genuine than a lot of the other ones. David Pacman, I'm sorry, I can't really get to like David Pacman. He's good, but I think there's too much advertising. He's always advertising stuff, which is a bit of a pain. I thought the US weren't going to put boots on the ground in Iran. I thought so too, but it looks like that's what's going to happen. So when it comes to the situation with the petrol station, I think this may, but Labour need to learn that if the economy doesn't improve and people don't feel better off, they're going to punish them. It doesn't matter what you say about Nigel Farage. You can try and convince people that he's not reliable, but at the end of the day, people are going to vote based on their own interests. And if you're not serving them, then they're going to vote for somebody else. Andrew and Peter Mandelson appear in bathrobes as they sit with Epstein in new picture. Let me get out of the way because I'm blocking the picture. The first known picture of Andrew Mountbatten, Windsor, Jeffrey Epstein and Peter Mandelson has surfaced. The image shows Andrew and Mandelson, the UK's former ambassador to the US, sitting in white bathrobes with the late convicted paedophile. The picture was amongst Epstein files released by the US Department of Justice. Being mentioned in the files is not evidence of wrong. Sky News keep posting this. It's like, I don't know if you guys can see it there, but Sky News keep posting this. Why do they keep posting this caveat? Being mentioned in the files is not evidence of wrongdoing. Is it like they're trying to stop some sort of witch hunt? Obviously not being mentioned in the files. Jon Stewart was mentioned in the files, but not because he was in any contact with Jeffrey Epstein or anything. There was an email or a message sent out. You would be really good as Jon Stewart. You should take over Jon Stewart's job or something like that. You'd do a better job than Jon Stewart. And that was the only reference to Jon Stewart, the comedian. He was like, hey, I'm mentioned in the Epstein files. But it's a real weird caveat that they keep putting in. Anyway, the former prince has always denied wrongdoing in relation to Epstein. Lord Mandelson has previously denied any wrongdoing over his relationship with the billionaire paedophile and has apologised to the financier's victims. Andrew lost his royal and military titles over his links to Epstein, who took his life while waiting for trial for sex trafficking. Took his life? No, he didn't. Oh, sorry. Officially. Okay. The former prince was arrested and released under investigation on Thursday, the 19th of February, over allegations of misconduct in public office, something he strongly denies. Yeah, there we go. So that's going by the image itself. That was probably sometime in the maybe the mid 2000s, the mid noughties. It's a bit difficult to see, but it does look a bit old. But it's not important how old it is. I don't know. Now, a question some people are asking is, would this bring down Keir Starmer's government, this Peter Mandelson scandal? And I'm going to say no. I don't. I'm going to say something that is quite crass, but it's a reality. The public don't seem to care. I don't know why. I think they should care, but the public don't seem to care about this. And I've been looking at... sorry, come back on the screen. I've been looking at reports into this, and it seems that the public don't really care about Peter Mandelson. So it's not so much about Epstein, but what Peter Mandelson was doing, because a lot of it is, of course, related to Epstein. We don't know all the details, but a lot of what has come out is basically corruption, alleged corruption, I should say, because it's still ongoing, but alleged corruption involving Peter Mandelson. And people don't care about corruption for some reason. I put out videos when the Tories were in charge about corruption. Those videos never really got any traction because it seems people don't, not with the exception of you guys, but the general public don't seem to care about corruption. So I don't think this Peter Mandelson scandal, at least unless something extremely dramatic comes out, Peter Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is not really damaging Keir Starmer. That's the reality. Politicians are trying to make it damage Keir Starmer, but it's not with the public. The public simply don't care, they don't care enough. And once again, I think this is a problem with corruption, is that if people don't feel directly connected to it, they don't care about the issue. The only time when people started really caring about Boris Johnson and Partygate was because they gave up something during the pandemic, and Boris Johnson did not. And people felt really attacked by that. And that's when people really turned on Boris Johnson. They were like, I'm sick of this guy, get rid of him. He shouldn't be the Prime Minister anymore. But when there was the PPE contracts and all that corruption, most people didn't really care because it didn't affect them personally. And that's something that politicians learn. Allegedly unlived himself. Yes, he allegedly unlived himself. Yes, he allegedly deleted a video of him unliving himself. He allegedly put on gloves and allegedly unlived himself. Yes. You know, these people become a liability, become a big problem. And if you have a lot of money and you're really concerned about losing a lot of that money, then people will take risks. And they'll say, look, there's this guy who is a problem and it would be better if he's not here around. And other people would be happy not to see him around. So, you know, he has a lot of leverage on me, but I'm going to take the chance. There's a risk that, you know, he could release this information against me and destroy my career, destroy my livelihood, everything, destroy my life if this guy does release the information. But there's a risk that if he was unalived, this information could come out, but maybe it won't. So I think that could have been the decision somebody was taking. He allegedly deleted himself. Allegedly, yes. Anyway, let's move on. Nigel Farage. We can't do a live stream without Nigel Farage. And I think things are not going so well for Nigel Farage. Farage regrets move to run bankrupt council. So remember that Reform had this idea. What we're going to do is we're going to take over all these councils. We're going to win all these elections, take over these councils, and we're going to run them like businesses. We're going to cut costs, cut waste, and they're going to be successful. Well, it's not really working out like that. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has said he wishes his party hadn't bothered to take minority control of Worcestershire County Council because of its financial problems. The Reform-led authority recently approved a council tax rise of almost 9%, one of the largest in its history, in a bid to balance the books and avoid effective bankruptcy amid a budget shortfall. This is really interesting because what Reform are doing is they're going back on their promises. Okay, that's not really to be surprised. You know, they lie. Okay, Reform UK lie. But I think Farage wanted these councils to be a sort of lightning rod, or he wanted to use them as some sort of propaganda. Look, we're able to run a council, we're able to run it efficiently, and we're able to cut costs, and we're able to cut people's taxes. They were lying, of course, but they were hoping that they'd be able to get by, and of course it didn't work. And either they didn't know, or they were lying to themselves when they thought, okay, we can just go in there and we can just cut everything and provide no public services. There were changes to one council where Reform are taking away free parking for the disabled. Because they hate the disabled. They hate poor people. They hate everyone who isn't a multimillionaire or billionaire. So if you're a multimillionaire or billionaire, you don't care about free parking for the disabled. So, of course, they're going to go in there and remove free parking. Like, it saves the council about £50,000, I think. You know, in a sense that, you know, it gains them about £50,000, which is a drop in the bucket for many councils. We're talking about some councils, they're spending millions of pounds every year. So 50,000 isn't really going to make that much difference. But it's about punishing the poor, punishing the disabled, because Reform don't care about those people. But also I think it was about presenting Reform as a reasonable party or an adult party who can run a council and improve the situation in the council. But obviously they didn't understand that you need to provide services by law. They thought they could just cut everything. One way for a council to cut waste is to stop bin collections. Yes, that's one way. Saves a lot of money not collecting any rubbish. In the same way as you save a lot of money not having car insurance. But I'm not saying you should do that, because if you have an accident, you'll find out pretty quickly. Or if you're stopped by the police, you'll find out pretty quickly the problem with saving on car insurance by not having any. Didn't the Reform Council spend £75,000 on flags and banners while raising council? Yes, they did, because they were pandering to their base. I think what happened was they cut money, so they cut some services and they saved £75,000, and then they spent that money on flags. So it wasn't that they spent, but then they ended up having to increase council tax as well. I think that was it. I don't remember which council it was, but I think there are a few of them who were doing that. Reform Council equals gammanopoly. Fresh brown version. Thanks, Garrett. Gammanopoly. I'm going to use that word in the future. Gammanopoly. Goes on to say, when questioned about the decision to increase tax, which is higher than the standard 5% normally allowed, Farage said that the party had inherited the council and didn't make it bankrupt. But why did you go in and promise people that you would either freeze or cut council taxes? You can't say we didn't know, because you obviously knew, because a lot of the councillors, because when you're running for council, you should know something about the council, and all of this is above board. The councils publish, as far as I know, they publish their accounts every year, so you would have been able to see the current situation of the council. It's not when you go in you discover, oh crap, it's all in the red. Asked whether his party wished his party had won the Worcestershire at the polls last year, Farage said, no, we didn't win the election. We formed a coalition, and we're always going to be on a hiding or nothing. What? We formed a coalition and we were always going to be on a hiding or nothing. Okay. Take Worcestershire out because of exceptional circumstances. A Reform UK spokesperson addressing Farage's comments said the party had stepped up and done its civil duty. He added, despite inheriting a catastrophic mess from the Tories and a council that had been propped up by the government bailouts, our team has fought hard to deliver a responsible budget and raise council taxes to the maximum. They were saying we're going to go in there and we're going to cut waste and reduce council taxes. Reform UK had previously pledged to cut council tax during the election campaign, took over leadership of the authority from the Conservatives following the local May elections in May, but has no overall majority. See, the problem, instead of being honest with the public and saying, look, we know we're going to probably take over difficult councils, we're going to increase council tax, they lied to the public. They told them we could go in there, we can cut waste. Because remember what Nigel Farage, Richard Tice, Lee Anderson, all of them were saying. It's a huge amount of waste. DEI, we're going to get rid of DEI. We're going to get rid of net zero. We're going to get rid of, immigration, all of these things. And we're going to say, a lot of these are not even related to the council. And we're going to save all this money. Ergonomic chairs. Remember Nigel Farage talking about ergonomic chairs. Get rid of all these ergonomic chairs, and we're going to save a fortune, and then we're going to spend it on flags. Okay, that's what people need. They don't care about care for the elderly. They don't care about housing. They don't care about social care. They don't care about potholes or bin collections. They care about flags, because as you know, you can eat a flag. UBI. Wow. Well, isn't that a surprise? Because one of our next stories is a UBI, but I want to show you this first.
I listened to you on the...
The president wants you. Sorry, the president wants you very well.
Oh, okay. Okay. No problem at all.
Okay, let me read the text because it's a little bit difficult to see. And let me zoom in. A remarkable moment. In the middle of an interview with my colleague Wilfred Frost from Sky News, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is called away after a message from the White House Situation Room. The president wants you right away. Minutes later, he returns, visibly shaken, barely able to speak.
See you shortly, Mr. Secretary.
You can work that in.
Mr. Secretary, I have to say, it's a first, I'm sure a last as well, that an interviewee's been pulled away to go to the Situation Room. How was the president? Was he stressed?
No, the president is in great spirits. The Iranian mission is proceeding well ahead of schedule. And I have to tell you, Wilf, that I've a teenager who's considering military service, and I could give this team my highest compliment, from President Trump to the head of the Joint Chiefs to the Secretary of War. I would say that I would trust my child's life in their hands.
Okay, so Probably Donald Trump calling him in saying, yeah, we're going to send troops into Iran. Okay. He's like, including what? My children? Yeah, probably your children as well. So get on the phone to them, get them to pack their bags and get over to Iran. And then he's like, what the fuck? I have to continue this interview. Betty has bone spurs. Probably. Yeah, that's what he's like. Get on the doctor. I'll fix the doctor's appointment so you can have bone spurs. Diagnosed bone spurs. But it's that was really weird. And of course, Donald Trump is willing to sacrifice other people in order to serve his goals. Of course, it's not him going to war. Somebody else will. So one of the final stories I want to cover tonight, guys, is of course UBI, Universal Basic Income. So this is a guy called Andrew Yang who ran for president back in 2020, or ran for the Democrats to be a candidate for the Democrats in 2020. And have a listen to what he had to say here about AI and UBI. Sorry, before we continue, Freckle Pony, thanks so much for that. Bessett is still gagging after his last order. Yes. Thanks for that. Oh my goodness. What's that, Max? Folk are asking.
Right now is Andrew Yang. He's the founder and CEO of Noble Mobile, a former Democratic candidate for president and New York City's mayor. He's also the author of Hey Yang, Where's My $1,000, which debuted last month. Good morning to you. You got the book right here. We got about a million things to talk to you about. AI. We want to talk about New York. We want to talk about taxes. Where do you want to start this morning?
I just came from an AI conference out west, and holy cow, they said to me that what we're going to see in the next 6 months outstrips what we've seen in the last 10 years because the rate of change is on a hockey stick and heading up. And I got to say,
So this term hockey stick, it's like a hockey. So a hockey stick, as you know, goes like that. And this is the development we're seeing in AI. So AI is getting better and better. It's not just getting better every few months. It's getting better almost every day or every week. We're seeing massive improvements. And it's, instead of going in a gradual curve up, it's like a hockey stick going straight up.
I'm pretty up to date on this stuff, and it blew my mind on some of the stuff I was seeing.
In terms of what? What did you see?
Well, there was one company that is selling autonomous coding for enterprises to big businesses, and their revenue is up 100-fold in the last 12 months. So if that continues, it's going to eat a lot of the tech budgets from major corporates that used to go to humans. And so you're seeing the employment of recent computer science graduates fall off a cliff from a lot of programs. If you rewind, 4 years ago, what would we tell young people for a secure career, learn to code? And now
and learn to code is completely gone now because the AI is able to do a lot of the coding, almost 100% of the coding actually. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat as well. Very kind of you. So this is really concerning because a lot of the white collar entry jobs are being done by AI, or a lot of the existing staff are being forced to improve their productivity by using AI.
The opposite of that is true.
So where are you on jobs long term?
Look, Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, laid it out very clearly, and he's been doing so repeatedly. He's saying we're going to automate away up to 50% of entry-level white-collar jobs in the next several years, and I believe him. The easiest people to fire are the people you haven't hired yet, which again is why you see the hiring of recent college graduates heading down, and the underemployment rate over 50%. The unemployment rate among college graduates is now the same or higher than non-college graduates for the first time in history.
How do we fix that? I mean, you're a guy with big ideas. Universal basic income was one of yours. How do we fix this entire issue?
Check it out. You tend to tax things that you want to discourage and you want less of. And we're going to be in a position where we want to shore up labor in every quarter, in every organization and environment. We should actually try to stop taxing labor because
the agents.
And this makes sense. So not put taxes on people working, but put taxes on the AI working. And that's not just the AI companies, but any company who's using AI. If they're using AI instead of workers, they should be taxed on that. So their productivity is going up And this is not just about the AI companies. One of the arguments against this was, well, if you just tax the AI companies, Anthropic or OpenAI or XAI or Google or whatever, well, they're in the United States, so that's not going to help us. But if companies in Europe, in the UK, around the world are using this AI and increasing their productivity, well, they need to be taxed more because they're not hiring staff. So this is going to be a way of covering some of the cost of a UBI.
Instead, the
yes,
AI agents?
exactly, Becky. And by the way, Dario Amodei, the second half of his statement, he said, we're going to automate away the white-collar jobs, and you should tax us. And since when does the CEO of a major company raise his hand and say, hey, tax me and mine? Because he sees the writing on the wall, and he knows that there's this massive backlash coming their way.
An interesting idea.
How would you do it? And there's going to be an argument. Dario may be on one side, but I imagine some of the other big tech companies are going to say, please don't tax us. We need this to sort of reach some kind of escape velocity first. We don't.
Yeah, of course, they're going to say that. Please don't tax it. If you tax us, then we're not going to be able to compete with China. But we have to tax, if not these companies, we have to tax the companies who are benefiting from this AI. Because there will be companies benefiting who will lay off staff.
Don't want to, we're in this fight with China. We need to get ahead of everybody. This is a little bit of the argument made around, frankly, retail sales in the internet age, if you recall.
The argument I would make, Andrew, is that escape velocity has been achieved. I mean, these models are now going to be able to improve on their own. Like we did it. We made it. And the competition with China is not going to be won or lost based on the last $10 spent, if you know what I mean. I mean, at this point, we're going to win or lose based upon the ability of these companies to improve on their models, which right now is not tied to, in my view, the biggest danger is this backlash that Dario is concerned about. Mm-hmm. And the backlash is going to get more and more pronounced as people wake up and have their kids coming back from college and living in the basement, and the implicit social contract of...
Yes, exactly. So when people are sending their kids off to college to learn a skill, and these kids come back and go, hey, there's nothing I can do, this is going to create a massive backlash. And I keep saying the problem is not AI. The problem is governments don't have a plan for it. And we need to have a plan for AI. There's no point saying, look, don't worry, we're going to get people jobs. No, we need to move away from this idea we will create jobs for people, because we will not be creating jobs for people. We need to have a plan B. And no one wants to talk about a plan B. It was Zach Polanski, when I had him on an interview before he became leader of the Green Party, we talked a little bit about a UBI. And he mentioned that he supported a UBI. He's the only politician in the UK I've heard, or at least party leader I've heard, talk about a UBI. But a UBI may not be enough. That's the problem. Because a UBI is a basic level, universal basic income. It would provide people with just enough to get by. But most people would not be satisfied with just enough. They need more, or they want more. So there needs to be something else. Now, it's possible that AI will bring down a lot of the cost of food and services, because you're eliminating a lot of people from the supply chain. So this technically, whether we'll see that or not is another issue, but it should technically bring down the price of stuff. So people may not need as much money as they did before, because for most people, they spend a lot of money on fuel, or they spend money on heating their homes, or they spend a lot of money on food. And if all of these things can be reduced to very low numbers, then it's not necessary to have a huge amount of money. But we need to be doing something about this now. Because as was pointed out, in the next 6 months, we're going to see a massive impact on white-collar work, entry-level positions. And if young people coming out of universities, college, don't have opportunities, this is going to create unrest. And, the buffering. Maybe it's what I'm doing here. I'm challenging the status quo. Used for good or be damned. AI is like fire. Fire can be used to cook a meal, to keep you warm, or it can be used to burn down a village. We can use it for positives. We have to focus on the positives. We need to force these companies to focus on the positives. Unfortunately, it's also going to be used for the negatives as well. Put a euro in the meter, Max. It's not my fault. I think it's something else that's causing these delays. The reason about AI is skyrocketing is because tech bros are illegally building data centers. I think there's a huge amount of investment going into data centers. We're going to see if that works out for them. I'm not completely convinced. I think there's a massive bubble. Not that it's going to stop AI, but I think a lot of companies are going to go to the wall because their value is inflated, like the dot-com bubble. So I don't see this stopping AI, but there will be massive winners out of this. But a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money in a very quick period of time. Max, your hamsters are snoozing on the job again. I hope the buffering has ended. So as we are almost at the end of the stream, I want to say thanks to everyone who came on tonight. Thank you to the moderators for doing a wonderful job as always. Thanks to everyone who sent a super chat and everyone who smashed the like button. So hopefully the buffering has ended. So I want to show you this small video before we go. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. I will see you on Tuesday, same bad time, same bad channel. But before you go, enjoy this one for the road.
Colin from Portsmouth is on the line. Hello, Colin.
This war, Anthony, I've seen my fair share of them on the telly. We all know who's behind it.
Well, it's pretty clear, isn't it, Colin? It's a very...
The carbon neutral lobby.
Sorry, what? The carbon neutral lobby's behind the war?
Yeah, they've been meddling behind the scenes, convincing America and Israel to do a war they didn't want to do, and now oil's $100 a barrel.
I'm not sure there was a plan, Colin. I don't think it's that deep.
Of course there was a plan. It was all the green lobbies. Wake up, mate. They've engineered this to make it look like relying on fossil energy sources thousands of miles away to power our country is more expensive than putting in a few wind farms.
Well, it is apparently. I mean, there was a study...
Well, even if it is, it's unpatriotic to make pushing for net zero cheaper than a single oil spike crisis. It's not the British way. Smoke, pollution, choking on a pea super. That's all part of the good old days. Ed Miliband, he's a traitor.
Ed Miliband's behind all this, Colin, is he?
Oh, yes. He's played the West like a puppet.
Right.
And as soon as Badenoch and Farage realised what was going on, they completely changed their minds. The bombing a country without clear objectives was a good idea.
Oh, well, Miliband couldn't even eat a bacon sandwich properly. I don't think he can mastermind a massive global crisis, Colin.
I'm telling you, mate, when the wokes rule the world, we'll trace it all back to this moment where we were tricked into having expensive petrol. They should be locked up. Anyway, mate, thanks for having me on. Love to the family.
Love to the family, Colin. Love to the family.
They went to Dubai to avoid paying VAT on school fees, and now they live in a war zone. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
So, guys, have a great weekend. I will see you on Tuesday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Stay safe. Take care. And hopefully...
On the 12th day of this conflict, it's fairly clear now that it's taking on...
Sorry about that. And hopefully, as this weekend normally involves something involving Donald Trump, hopefully it will be something good. Stay safe, take care, and good night.